A few years ago, I saw this video on a game development subreddit. I thought, hey, this looks sick. I can't wait until it comes out. Then I got distracted, probably by my cat or existential dread. Either way, I forgot about the video entirely until I was browsing upcoming releases on Steam and came across Rollerdrome. Respecting the wishes of my past self, I bought the game shortly after it came out. Rollerdrome is a fast-paced third-person shooter in which the player competes in a roller skating blood sport of the same name. It's very much attempting to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but with guns. The game is set in the year 2030, in a world where corporations rule and the lines between reality and performance are blurred. The public are kept distracted by the violence and excess of a brutal new blood sport, Rollerdrome. Competitors are chosen to compete in a series of gauntlets against deadly house players. Owned by the mega corporation Matterhorn, the International Rollerdrome Federation plans for this year's championship to be its most popular yet. The sport itself is somewhere between vert rollerblading, paintball, and the ancient Roman Colosseum. You play as Kara Hassan, a Rollerdrome rookie making her debut in the most competitive tournament to date. When starting a new game, you're thrust straight into the Rollerdrome arena for the tutorial, controlling Kara in the third person, after which you explore the locker room from a first-person perspective. At the beginning of every stage of the tournament, you'll play a short first-person sequence like this one. These segments break up the gameplay and help stave off the feeling that you're doing the same thing over and over. The feeling still exists, because that's exactly what you're doing, but these little breaks help. The other thing these segments do is give the game the opportunity to deliver exposition and tell its minor story through notes and other such things that the player can read. A newspaper describes how Matterhorn, the parent company of the Rollerdrome League, is attempting to privatize the police. In the locker labeled Lola Igwe, a stack of flyers urges the reader to fight against corporate control by joining the new Action Army. Kara can check her L&K messages, revealing that the championship entry fee was just a hair under $350,000. She covered the fee with a loan, using her life insurance policy as collateral. Don't let the bright colors and cell shading fool you. This game is dystopic. When you leave the locker room, a neat perspective shift happens as you begin the first stage. The stage has 4 levels: the Matterhorn Arena, Pikes Canyon, Civetta Summit, and the Houston Mall. That last one is hilarious to me for some reason. To complete a level, you have to kill all of the house players in that level. You earn points for each kill and can build a combo multiplier by killing enemies in quick succession. Your best scores will go on the leaderboard among everyone else who has played the game. I could not possibly care less about where I sit on the leaderboard in this game, but I'm sure that some people do. It feels like a lot of smaller games add a leaderboard mechanic on top to convince themselves or their publisher that the game has more content than it actually does. Anyways, every level has 10 challenges. These are analogs to the goals that you have to complete on each level of the Tony Hawk series, except none of them are interesting. In Tony Hawk games, you get goals like start an earthquake or escape from Alcatraz. In Rollerdrome, challenges are mostly in the vein of kill X number of enemies with Y weapon. To complete a stage, you have to complete all of the stage's levels, plus a certain number of the challenges from the levels in the stage. The first stage has 4 levels, after which Kara explores the London studio of OTV, the broadcast station that handles Rollerdrome coverage. OTV is ostensibly a news station, but they're owned by Matterhorn, which creates an obvious conflict of interest. A memo from the OTV editor instructs employees to increase Rollerdrome coverage, and a note on the memo mentions that this increased coverage is coming at the expense of an interview with the new Action Army. Clearly, by corporate control, the new Action Army was referring to Matterhorn. We can also find a note about calling the International Rollerdrome Federation to increase the challenge in response to one of the competitors, Morgan Frey, calling Matterhorn morally bankrupt. Morgan Frey is a Rollerdrome legend and seems to be the favorite for winning the championship at this point. She's also unambiguously one of the good guys. Back in the locker room, she left you a note welcoming you to the competition, and here in the OTV studio, she left another, warning you about the challenges that Matterhorn intends to introduce. Once again, Kara can check her messages. Another competitor, Casper X, sent Kara an email in which he essentially just negs her and then offers to train her privately. She has a pair of emails from the Matterhorn bureaucratic complex offering advertisement deals and warning competitors that they aren't allowed to express views that aren't aligned with Matterhorn's interests. It's just real PR garbage. Kara has a message from Lola Igwe as well, inviting her to participate in a protest for the new Action Army. Back in the newsroom, the whiteboard indicates that OTV should avoid coverage of Igwe, and ominously, her name is crossed out off of the interview schedule. I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. Stage 2 is the quarterfinals. There are 3 levels this time: Echo Basin, Barbican Arena, and Eiger Resort. Each of these levels is just a layout reconfiguration of a level in the previous stage. The assets are arranged differently, but not differently enough to modify the gameplay. It's really kinda lazy. Unlike Stage 1, Stage 2 ends with a boss fight. It's the Zabriskie Spider Tank, which Matterhorn plans to eventually deploy as part of their policing efforts. The idea of a boss that doubles as a quarter pipe is cool, but the fight execution falls flat. Kill the house players, get onto the tank, shoot the orange spot, get launched across the map, rinse and repeat. It's pretty mid. The first level of the semifinals is at the Green Bay Mall, which is even funnier than the Houston Mall. The player can explore the train that Kara takes to Green Bay. Morgan Frey dead, reads the newspaper's featured headline. She died at Eiger Mountain. Looks like Matterhorn got what they wanted. In Casper Ix's cabin, a letter from competitor Daniel Murphy suggests that the house players are taking it easy on Ix. Murphy asks Ix to put in a good word for him. Kara has an email from Ix. Actually, she has several. He's pissed that she ignored his last message. For anyone not reading between the lines here, the devs are giving commentary on the dudes who become absolutely unhinged when their advances aren't reciprocated. Here's a quick tip for the younger fellas who are new to dating. If someone isn't interested in you, it's not a personal attack, so don't respond like it is. If your response to rejection is insults, you're a fucking toddler. A magazine cover quotes Ix as saying that he has no time for politics. Initially, I interpreted this as Ix withholding comments on Matterhorn in order to keep the money flowing, but just seconds earlier, Ix was used to deliver commentary, so I think this is more of that. Ix is a guy who sees one side trying to fight an oppressive system, the other side fighting to keep it in place, and upon careful consideration, decides that he doesn't care. At everyone who's not into politics or apolitical or thinks that both sides are the same. If you don't support change, you inherently approve of the status quo. In addition to the Green Bay Mall, this stage also features the Zugspitz Station and the Zabriskie Research Facility. Again, these levels are just previous levels with a different feng shui. Back in the locker room, just before the competition, Kara finds a note from Casper Ix's insider with the league, Clarence Hauser. The letter warns Kara of the dangers of the final round, urging her to drop out and accept second place. In exchange, Kara would have her debt cleared and be guaranteed a spot in next year's championship. This is plata o plomo. For the uninitiated, plata o plomo, Spanish for silver or lead, was the term that Pablo Escobar used to describe his government infiltration doctrine. Accept a bribe or be murdered. It was wildly successful. We also find a letter from Hauser to Morgan Frey from before the quarterfinals. The letter refers to Morgan's comments critical of Matterhorn, warning her that if she doesn't bring her conduct in line with expectations, the league will be forced to take drastic action. This letter is for everyone who actually played the game instead of letting handsome YouTubers spoon-feed the important information, just driving home the point that Matterhorn intentionally killed Frey. It's also where we learn that Ix's insider is the league's president, so all of this is coming from the top. According to the newspaper, Lola Igwe was arrested in connection with a bombing conducted by the New World Army. The Rollerdromer who asked for Ix's help rigging the next round, Daniel Murphy, was also in the news. He was stomped to death during his semifinal match. Kara has a message from Ix, telling her that she doesn't stand a chance. The player can find Ix's keycard in his locker and plug it into the LNK terminal to read his messages as well. There are several messages from Daniel Murphy, begging for help, we see how that went, and one from the league president. Kara doesn't stand a chance, We've deployed our best players. See you at the party tonight. If we didn't know that the match was meant to be rigged, the hubris here would feel satirical. It's something Dwight Goodman could believably have said before his team blew a 4-1 lead in the 1993 Las Vegas International Dodgeball Tournament. And I know what you're thinking. There's no way that dodgeball was set in 1993. Lance Armstrong is in the movie, and he talks about his cancer diagnosis and being a 5-time Tour de France champion, but he wasn't diagnosed with cancer until '96, and he didn't win his 5th tour until 2004. The movie couldn't possibly be set in 1993. It doesn't make any sense. Well, guess what? It is, so deal with it. Kara wins the championship, of course, and you're back in the locker room. There's a letter to Ix from Hauser's assistant, letting the former know that the president no longer has time for him. He's moved on to better things. A tape recorder features a message from Hauser to Kara, congratulating her on the win. All that's left to do is interact with the championship trophy, ending the campaign. Let's talk about level design. Most aspects of this game are unremarkable one way or the other, but not the levels. They're terrible. This is the Green Bay Mall level. I'm sticking to the perimeter just to show how tiny and boring the level is. For comparison, here's the mall level in the Tony Hawk remake. I get that it's not fair to compare an indie game that started as a solo project to a big budget game like Tony Hawk, but being from a small team doesn't somehow negate the fact that Rollerdrome's levels aren't fun. None of Rollerdrome's levels underwhelm quite like the arenas though. There is absolutely nothing in them. The developers decided that these levels were so good that they were worthy of serving as capstones to the game, and that blows my mind. The beginning and end of the game, the two most memorable parts, set in empty gymnasiums. I can kind of see the rationale behind maybe wanting to start with a sort of classic experience, and having the final level be a modified version of the first one is a totally acceptable decision, but if your classic experience is literally an empty room, something needs to be reevaluated, something has gone wrong. The gunplay is fine. It's not good, it's not bad, it's okay. Obviously, it's very hard to shoot while moving, so the game compensates for that with a comically overpowered targeting system. There's also bullet time. I think that the existing bullet time system, combined with a damage buff for the handguns, would have made for a much more satisfying shooter experience than this one that's got the sort of skill-less targeting system. With how shooting is actually implemented in the game, all you need to do is point near an enemy once, and then you don't need to think about aiming again until you pick your next target. The gunplay doesn't really make the game worse, not by itself, but it also doesn't make the game any better. So it would be suitable in an otherwise good game that just needs a shooting system, but it can't carry the game on its own, which it's kind of being asked to do. So what about the roller skating? The gunplay shouldn't need to carry the game if the roller skating is good, right? Well, the roller skating is one of those things that the game does very, very well, but it kinda doesn't matter. It more or less matches the feel of the Tony Hawk games, which is awesome. It's clear that a lot of time went into this, and my hunch is that this part of the game was built first, and then the rest of the game was built around it. The problem with Rollerdrome is that the skating isn't particularly interesting. A game like Skate can be carried by the skating because the system is rich enough to be the primary focus of your attention. Contrast that with the Tony Hawk games, which have very simple skating mechanics, but they work because your attention is directed towards the unique and interesting challenges in large, complex spaces. Again, maybe it's not fair to compare Rollerdrome to the Tony Hawk games, but Goat Simulator managed to nail interesting challenges in an interesting world. So on this front, Rollerdrome doesn't get a pass. Neither the gunplay nor the skating have any complexity to them. At all. They're both reduced versions of genre standards, and I think that this was done out of fear. Being bad at games is not fun, and it feels like the game was designed to make sure that no one could feel like they're bad at it. In the process, the developers made it impossible to feel like you're good at the game. To be clear, I'm not saying that no one is good at this game. What I'm saying is that the mechanics are so neutered that you have very little opportunity to ever demonstrate how good you actually are. It's like they thought the worst possible fate for a video game would be for some people to dislike it, So they played it safe by making a game that no one could have strong feelings about one way or the other. My theory, for which I have no evidence whatsoever, is that this game was developed to pitch a sequel, with that sequel being the game as originally envisioned. Probably something halfway between Jet Set Radio Future and Tony Hawk Underground. The obvious premise for such a game would be defeating Matterhorn, right? Rollerdrome manages to cram quite a bit of lore and storytelling into very, very little space, which makes me think that we may only have a small window into a much larger saga that's already written. It would explain to me why everything in the game is so bland. None of it leaves an impression. They wanted it to be easy for a publisher to project their own vision on top of the game as a sales pitch. Given the themes of the game, it's almost incomprehensible that the designers opted for desert, snow, mall, instead of a cyberpunk setting, but if there were a reason to use highly sanitized settings, the decisions make a lot more sense. I'm not saying that every game with evil megacorporations has to be cyberpunk, but the overall design of these levels is just so uninspired, and if you don't have a cohesive, intentional design strategy, why not take the path of least resistance and pick cyberpunk? I don't know. There are a lot of holes in my theory, and it's really just wishful thinking on my part, but I hope it's true. I really wanted this game to be awesome, and it just isn't, but it's got the bones for it. Mechanically, it doesn't do anything wrong, and there are tons of great games with only solid gameplay. Rollerdrome really isn't that far from being one of those great games. If you made it all the way to this point in the video and you're still thinking, I really want to play this game, then do it. I honestly did enjoy it. Otherwise, I would probably recommend skipping this one. I'll probably never boot it up again. I appreciate you sticking it out to this point. My hope is that if you made it this far, you liked the video. If so, click the like button to tell YouTube that you want more content like this, and to tell me that you like the track that I'm on. I'm trying out a lot of different things at this stage, so this kind of feedback is very helpful. If you have more specific feedback, positive or negative, you can of course leave a comment. I do keep track of where my audience feels like I have room to grow, and I think that's helping a lot. Obviously, if you want more of my content specifically, you can find some on my channel, and you can subscribe to me as I try to grow. You can also share the video with anyone that you know that you feel like might enjoy it. Lastly, I'm trying to grow my Twitter following alongside my channel. 3 videos in, and I've picked up 0 additional followers. It's kind of a catch-22 because it's hard to gain followers without tweeting, but right now, it's just me screaming into the void. As my Twitter starts to grow, so too will my tweet frequency. Having said that, I do try to tweet out updates and thoughts about my videos. Anyways, thanks for watching.